Welcome to Screen Chat, and this is the Screen Chat Oscar Special. I'm your host, Neil Bashins, and I just wanted to put a quick note on the beginning here to say that this week I was so excited to talk with Warren Nightingale about the Oscars that I kind of had a little technical difficulty with the recording, and I had our mic set too hot. So I've corrected it as much as I can in post-production, but they're a little bit distorted, and it might seem like we're shouting into your ear a little bit, so I apologize for that. You might want to turn the volume down on this one just a bit. But it's a really great conversation, so I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Screen Chat, and this is a very special episode because it's the Oscars coming down the red carpet right now and right into the Screen Chat studios. Please welcome Warren Nightingale. Warren, come on in,
thank you. I can't believe how well decorated you've decked out this place. This is incredible.
Fantastic. I love your tux, dude. Who are you wearing?
You know, it's a little bit loose this year. It's the same one as last year because how often are you going to wear a tux?
Well, is that Armani?
Well, sure.
You're looking fantastic in that. Me, this year I decided to rock a Tom Ford versus Ferrari. But,
how long were you waiting to check that one out?
6 weeks.
There you go.
All right, so kicking it off with a bad joke.
Yeah. My favorite time of year, the coming down and just be able to talk films, and what an exciting time this is. You do look good.
Hey, thanks, buddy. It is the most wonderful time of the year for cinephiles, at least, and for the Oscar bait type movies.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is our second, now annual Oscar preview show on Screen Chat.
Yeah, that didn't feel like that was all that long ago.
No. So this year we're gonna run down 9 categories. I basically took the ones that I can speak the most informatively about.
Okay.
Some of the ones we're not going to talk about, like I left out stuff like score and best song.
Ooh.
Score was a tough one to leave out, but as I thought back, maybe I still got to start taking notes, but as I thought back and I looked at the nominees, I'm like, I couldn't specifically remember all of them. So I'm like, to judge them against each other, if I could sit and listen to a sample of them, maybe I'd go, I remember this.
How bars?
Yeah, so I really would have been a pick-em.
Song 2. Everyone's pretty hyped about Rocket Man, so I think that's going to be a lock.
Probably,
anyway, so.
And I'm like, I don't remember all the songs specifically. I left out shorts, which is disappointing, but there's really not. We don't have a venue to see in the shorts here. It's difficult.
For me, I wish they would do a weekend release. Just collectively put them all together, put them as a package, put them in the theater. I think there's an appetite out there that people would watch it. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just me.
I agree, but unfortunately they don't. So until one of us owns a theater, I left out animated because I think I'd seen one of them.
Right.
I left out costume and makeup design. Both. Okay. Is that 2 categories or is that 1 category?
Two categories. 2? Yeah, makeup and hair would be 1. But
now I probably could have, I think I'd seen most of them.
Right.
Problem becomes I'm not really qualified to compare them. I'm like, I like the costumes in this versus that, but I really don't understand, or in the idea of makeup, I don't think I fully grasp the skill or the talent so to try to compare one versus another, I didn't really know, so I sort of left that one out.
Often they tend to go to period pieces. I do think, I'll just briefly mention, I do think Bombshell has got a chance, because when we were watching that film in the theater, I was like, you know what, to me it feels like the makeup and the hair is almost like it has a really strong presence in the film, like it certainly transcended those characters, and I was able to get lost into the film because how well those were done. I hope that gets it just for that reason, because usually it does go to, like, both the costumes. It usually goes to period pieces, but here I thought it was an example of.
Well, maybe the 90s is a period now. Are we far enough from it?
Maybe.
Was it the 90s or the 2000s? When was that set? 2000s. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but I'm still wearing clothes from the 90s, so I'm not the guy to ask.
Maybe yours didn't period. I left out sound design and sound editing. On last year's Oscar show, you gave a really awesome explanation to explain the difference between the two. But again, thinking back over the films of the year, I couldn't. Maybe I need to make notes. I couldn't specifically remember which ones. I know I thought Ford v Ferrari had really great in both.
The racing. Oh my god.
So, but I couldn't really compare. I think looking at some of the other ones, I couldn't remember. The one that was a tough one for me to leave out. It was the closest one that I almost included was film editing.
Oh yeah, okay.
And the only reason I didn't include it was, again, there's so it's such a bizarre. This year seemed to me like it's a really great example of why it's a tough category.
I think it's actually good for me. It's probably the toughest category to predict. Like I'd have to look up all the contenders, but I remember
one second. I'm just going to pull it up. Yeah,
I remember Parasite being one of them, and I think that is a wonderfully edited film. And for the most part, if I recall,
so the nominees were Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite.
So you have one editor, Thelma Schumacher, who she's got at least like 3 Oscars to her name and like probably like 8 nominations or something like that. And she's so she's been around, but the rest of them, this would be. I think for the most part, they all are sort of, this is their entry into, kind of the bigger stage. With the exception of probably who's on Todd Phillips, like who's on edited the Joker?
Jeff Groth.
Yeah, I believe he's got maybe some credits, but for the rest of them, this is probably their biggest film, and something like I would argue something like Jojo Rabbit was really well edited. Like I really enjoyed the way that was cut together. But it's hard to compare that to, let's say, Ford v Ferrari, which is another well edited film, but it's
that's
two
kind
different
of the
arenas.
Point. That's
right?
kind of the point. Like film editing can be. In Jojo Rabbit, it was really well edited from the standpoint of it really had a great pace and kept the story going. A thing like a Ford v Ferrari, you could say that was edited because it made the races really exciting, and so editing can be maintain the momentum or the energy of a film.
Yeah.
It can be in a case like it wasn't nominated, but like in Little Women, there's a whole bunch of different storylines going on, and I think where editing plays into that is keeping them balanced and how long you're in one and then before you click back to another to keep you engaged in the entire film and how those all knit together. Another one that I am utterly baffled that it's not nominated is 1917.
Oh yeah.
And that's a totally different kind of editing because in there it's disguised. It's meant to look like one continuous shot, so it's completely disguised, and that's like that as an editing feat is absolutely incredible.
For sure.
But how would you compare?
That's the artistry of it.
And I'm just not educated enough to informatively compare, these different kinds of ones against each other. So, for me, it would have just been a pick-em for like what's better, JoJo or Ford v or whatever Parasite.
Yeah.
So, because I could not myself make an informed decision, I'll be taking my pick-em guess on my Oscar pool.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't really. I think you're smarter than me in some of these aspects.
No.
Obviously, but I couldn't really debate
some of these aspects.
Okay, all of these aspects.
I feel insulted now.
So
I'm kidding.
I do not have the punching power to debate you on an issue like film editing, so to speak.
Well, for me, I would probably lean into Parasite just because, like for example, that montage. You remember the montage of where they ousted the. Sorry if this is a spoiler. But where they ousted the not the maid, but I guess the housekeeper. The way that was cut together was pretty phenomenal. It was quick, it was fast, it was moving the story, and it gave pauses to catch the information that you needed. And for me, I would say that was off the top of my head, that would be my favorite editing of the year. But again, it's tough because all those films all of them are well edited. Each one, I can see each one of them. Deserving to take that home. So
anyways, that's why I left those out. The categories we will be going through this year are, and this is the order we're going to go through them in.
Nice.
Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Original Screenplay, Adapted Screenplay, Lead Actress, Lead Actor, Cinematography, Director, and Best Picture.
Awesome. All the big categories. Look at that.
Well, these...
Hey,
I guess the people who do the categories wouldn't call these the big categories, but
forget the first hour and a half of the show. Here we go. We're coming down to the Yeah, I guess so. Who am I to say those are the big ones?
Yeah. Coming from two guys who will never, ever win an Oscar.
Hey, ouch.
All right, so
2030 is my year.
Okay, we'll mark it down. It's now etched in digital. So, anyways, before we dive in, are there any of those categories that we decided not to include? Now, you just mentioned, editing. You would have thrown it at.
Well, no, I'm not saying I would throw it in there. Just because you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, I think that's going to be the hardest
no, I mean like
one,
that. But you singled out Parasite there.
I think so.
Are there any other ones in categories that I've decided to leave off the show today? Are there any specific nominees in anything you really want to shout out? Did you have one that you really loved the score to and thing, or the effects or something? Anyone? Any?
No, yeah. When it comes to score,
well, any category, anything. Just were there any achievements of the year that aren't on the list of the ones you and I are going to go through here that you want to shout out before we move on?
Well, like nothing that'll be debatable. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the best.
Like my personal thing, I thought editing for 1917. I thought that was not nominated even.
Oh yeah.
To me, was just bizarre. Like I don't understand that at all. But
yeah. No, there isn't any itches I'm scratching to say, oh my God, we're not going to get a chance to talk about this category. Last year, documentary was one of the ones that we talked quite a bit about, and the films that are on the list we did not get in our market. So it's kind of like,
yeah, that's one I'm really disappointed to leave out. But
yeah, that's too bad.
There's one of those in that category is on Netflix. I could have got that one, and I have zero access to anything else.
Yeah,
and I'm like.
That's tough.
I'm really disappointed by it because I love documentary film and I would have loved to include it and talk about it this year, but we just simply didn't get to see any of them.
And that could be a topic for another time to talk about, like, in this day and age where, there's so much access to media in general, and now it's not like a film reel going around to market. It's all digital. Like, why can't we open it up to see if there's more films that we can be seeing like that, such as the shorts we talked about earlier? I don't understand. It boggles my mind why we can't be accessing these things in one way or another. Even if it's not in the theater, but even just say, hey, on iTunes right now is the shorts, and please download and, or, for a fee, of course. I'm not saying steal it.
No, I would pay for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we should make it a goal this year to try to talk to, try to get on the phone, either someone from Cineplex or someone from Landmark Cinemas, and somebody high up, like I'm thinking nobody less than like the second or third in charge. Like, let's go to the top, get them on the show here via phone, and ask them why this isn't happening. So,
come on.
Do you think that can happen?
If I was going to lay, let's say, some odds, I'll give you 1 in 20.
Not so much.
1 in 20 chance of that happening. I'd say that's not bad.
Okay. Let's jump into this then. Starting off with Best Supporting Actress.
Okay.
So, and before I go, what we're going to do here with each category, we'll go through the nominees, and then we'll sort of just discuss any standouts or work we thought, and we'll each of us will make our pick of where if we were voting, who we'd be voting for, and then we'll maybe offer up our Academy prediction of how we think it will go down on Oscar night.
Right on.
And we'll preface all of this by saying these picks today do not represent necessarily our final picks for our Oscar pool that we talked about on another podcast, on Warren's Screen Pop podcast.
Yeah. Fair disclaimer. Here we go.
So my picks could change before next Sunday night.
Nice.
We'll have to pick a time for when they have to be in by.
Noon on Sunday.
Noon next Sunday?
Yeah,
okay, noon they got to be in.
Yeah.
And so these picks today do not necessarily represent my final choices.
Okay.
All right?
I like it.
Jumping in the category Best Supporting Actress, the nominees are Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell, Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh for Little Women, and Margot Robbie for Bombshell. Okay, off the top, Scarlett Johansson, one of 2 times tonight we're going to see her nominated. That's fantastic. And this one, boy, I have tough going across because I liked all these performances.
They're all quite good.
Does anything stand out to you right off the top? Reference?
Yeah, Lawrence Stern certainly seems to be, for me, like if you look at any articles online, people are buzzing about her.
She's definitely got the tide behind her right now.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. And I thought that was a great performance.
I thought it was a really great performance, yeah.
It was a really solid performance. The timing is good. So for me, if I'm looking at that, jumps off the page. Kathy Bates and Richard Jewell was a nice.
It was unexpected to me.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect from Richard Jewell, and I thought she gave a really great performance. And right now, I've lost the name of the actor that played the title character.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Paul Walter Hauser. Hauser. Okay, so yeah.
Great performance.
Yeah, great performance. I thought he was really fantastic.
Yes.
I was a little bit disappointed he didn't get nominated for Best Actor. It was a tough field this year, but we'll get to that when we get there. Also, I was kind of... we'll talk about that when we get to that other category.
Sure.
But there was lots of great performances in this.
Yes.
I thought this film was mainly the performances.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's what the best part of it was. And
Easily.
I thought... and Kathy Bates was really fantastic.
It was a lovely dynamic. It really resonated off the screen, so I enjoyed that.
Scarlett Johansson,
of course,
was really fantastic in Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, and the fact that she had the year that she did, always kind of it gives it extra oomph to that.
It's tough because JoJo is my favorite movie of the year too. Yeah. So I'm going to naturally gravitate to that one. Florence Pugh in Little Women I thought was really good. A standout. Truly a supporting role because she was not the main character. She never overshadowed Saoirse Ronan. She just supported that performance, and also taking on like a character that is not like the well liked character of the film, and yet still very. It's not like a person comes on the screen you're like no. I was really engaged with her, and I really enjoyed that performance.
Nicely said.
Yeah. And then and Margot Robbie in Bombshell. Of any of them, that's the one that stands out the least to me. The other four are sort of like all neck and neck for me. Tougher choice. If I was going to nick one out here, if I'm to pick, I would nick that one off my list.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like it was good. Nothing wrong with the performance.
It's fine. Yeah.
I can't think of another one this year that I would have put in there off the top of my head. I'd have to really scrub through some of the. There could be ones in some of the ones we didn't get to see because also there was a lot this year that we didn't get to see, like things like Honey Boy.
Oh, those, yeah.
There was
a few of those indie darlings.
Another one with Florence Pugh that she was in. I've lost the name of it now. Midsummer.
Oh,
which I heard a lot about and didn't get a chance to see, and I was really disappointed. But it got no nominees, so I sort of haven't deleted it from my list. But in terms of getting ready for the Oscars, I downgraded the priority on seeing it because it got no nominations. But
yeah. And coming back to Margot Robbie too, it was good. But not, even the film, I wouldn't necessarily put her performance over top of Nicole Kidman.
No.
So they were both really good in the film. So,
but that was a performance versus a supporting performance. But
yeah. Well, I would say, what's her name was the lead, in my opinion, anyway.
I would agree, but there's not really a rule now for what constitutes it. There's not anything like screen time or anything like that rule that differentiates supporting from lead. It's just whatever the studio feels like to do submitting the person for. So
Charlize Theron, kind
of ridiculous.
I
would say Charlize was the main lead of it.
Yeah.
But so our argument could have been made to throw Nicole Kidman in there instead. But so of these five, what's your personal pick?
You know what? It's going to be both my personal pick. Who I think the Academy's going to vote for is going to be Laura Dern. I think
Laura Dern.
Yeah,
across the board for you.
Yep.
Your personal pick and your Academy prediction.
Yep.
As of 6 days or 7 days before the awards.
Yeah, it's not quite a photo finish, but I'd say Scarlett Johansson would be sort of the one I go to next. But I do think that Laura Dern, it's her. It just feels like this is the right time and it's the right performance. She was great as the lawyer. Yeah. What about you? What's
my personal? If I was voting, my personal vote would go to Scarlett, and that's probably again colored by that it was my favorite film this year.
Cool.
But I thought she was really fantastic. But it was a pretty close race. And my Academy prediction is also Laura Dern. It just feels that's the way the wind is blowing right now. It's deserved, but absolutely, I'm not just saying it just because the wind's blowing that way. Well deserved. I can't argue with that pick.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would say that's the way that's going. So we are in agreement there.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to a category where I do have some issues with.
Okay.
Best Supporting Actor. So the nominees this year are Tom Hanks for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Cool.
Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes.
Right.
Al Pacino for The Irishman. Joe Pesci for The Irishman. And Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
Warren, first thoughts.
Well, these guys are no strangers to this category or to being nominated for their performances in years past. It almost feels like a lot of these are because of who they are is why they're getting nominated. I
was going to say I'd say that for 4 out of 5. But I'd probably say that for 5 out of 5.
It just feels like these are some pretty big names, and I guess of all of them, I would say like Tom Hanks maybe gives a performance in the sense of, he kind of embodies characteristics of Fred Rogers. However, I was always very conscious that it was Tom Hanks. Like I couldn't really get
I think
there.
Unfortunately, Tom Hanks has transitioned into that phase, or not transitioned, but he's hit that point where, and I don't think for him it's out of a not acting. I think he's just so big. He's not an actor anymore. He's a movie star. And no matter what he's in, I see Tom Hanks. Yeah. And he did really give a great performance. But again, you're conscious. Like,
yeah, you didn't get really lost into it. And it's still a great performance. And he's got the nuances down. And it was enjoyable. And I liked it a lot.
I hate to say this, but it's almost expected, though. Like, he's such a good actor that as soon as I heard of that casting, before I'd seen a single frame of film, I was like, I knew what it was going to be. Yeah. And it was exactly what it was going to be, and it was exactly what it should be, and fantastic, but not really surprising.
Probably, I'm leaning towards Brad Pitt simply because, I enjoyed that character quite a bit.
It was a fun character to be with. A lot of scene chewing, which was what the role was.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, like, does Brad Pitt take a lot of roles like this? Like, not every role is like that, but I don't know.
As a career, I think he's made some pretty smart choices where he balances.
I think he has done a lot of different. He has had a lot of variety. By no means is he typecast or only take a certain type of role. He's not like Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, no, we'd have to go back, to the '90s when really he sort of really consciously made a choice of going down a different path rather than the movie star path. He started, like, he's in 12 Monkeys. He also went to Fight Club, and he took roles that...
He's taking dirty roles.
Yeah.
Gritty roles.
Gritty and
things that aren't
edgy,
traditional. Oh, this is going to really make me a darling, or I'm going to play on my Hollywood good looks or something.
Yeah, but immediately, he can do an Ocean's 11, and he's right back to that.
He definitely lean on that when he wants to and take a check home.
Yeah, exactly. Magazine cover. Yeah.
Joe Pesci. Did you see that? You have a chance to watch The Irishman?
Oh, full disclosure, no.
Okay.
Joe Pesci, it's kind of hard for me to jump in, but
Joe Pesci was good in this role. By no means do I want to say he was not good, but I just felt like I've seen him play this role before. So I really, him being in there, to me, like, there's somebody else I could have put in there. Al Pacino playing Jimmy Hoffa. He was good in terms of he's not doing like a classic or not going into his like Pacino tropes. He wasn't like super crazy or anything like that. Not doing a Pacino, as we'd say. Yeah. But still, not by any means the best thing he's ever done. Anthony Hopkins, did you see The Two Popes?
I have not, again.
Okay, The Two Popes.
Apparently I did not do my Oscar homework.
The Two Popes is good, but it's not blow-away. Like, neither Anthony Hopkins or Jonathan Pryce were not, to me, blow-away performances. They're good, but when I look down this list, I could knock any of them. If anyone is exempt from my knock list, I'd say maybe Tom Hanks. The other 4... any of those could have been knocked out of there in favor of Sam Rockwell.
Okay.
And to me...
and that's who you were thinking about earlier.
It
when
was.
We were talking.
It was. Yeah, I almost brought it up. Yeah. Sam Rockwell, he was really good in Richard Jewell, even better in Jojo Rabbit. And that's not just because Jojo Rabbit was my favorite film, but I guess maybe it is. Maybe Jojo is my favorite film of the year because it had so many great aspects to it. But he as Captain K in Jojo Rabbit, that performance was definitely better than at least 3 out of these 4 that I just named. Like, it was better than The Two Popes. It was better than Joe Pesci in The Irishman, like a more standout role, and better than Brad Pitt.
The Sam Rockwell performance in Jojo Rabbit, I think it's better the second time you see the film.
It is,
because
you pick up more of the nuances.
Exactly, and you see where the character's going and where the story's going, and and then watching the second time around, you're like, oh, okay, I'm seeing things I didn't see the first time around in his performance. And so I do agree that it was a really good performance, and I unless if people have seen it a second time, though, they might not get a full appreciation for it, I guess was what I'm saying.
Yeah, but like not to and I'm not by any means like, full disclosure, I'm not a Hollywood actor, so, here I'm picking apart their job, but like the Brad Pitt role didn't seem to me like it was that much of a stretch or that difficult for him. He just got there, kind of got in this space and had fun. Anthony Hopkins in The Two Popes, when I watch it, it's like he's not really stretching himself. Like, this was not like a career blow-away performance for Anthony Hopkins, and same for Pesci and Pacino. And like, I think, and Sam Rockwell, like, pick him. He's got a career made on, like, in my opinion, really great performances, because he does so many different things and he's always really going out there. And yeah, to me, he was better than either of those four. So any one of those should have been knocked off the list, in my opinion. And again, we're scoring art here, so it's all very subjective. But I really think that Sam Rockwell not being on here is disappointing to me.
So that's your pick, Sam Rockwell.
If I, in a dream world, if I could have had a pick and could have added one, this would be a category where I wish I would have been someone else. That being said, my personal pick of who I would vote for would be Tom Hanks.
Okay.
Who's your personal pick?
I'm going to go with Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt's your personal pick?
Yeah.
Okay, and for my Academy prediction is actually Brad Pitt.
Yeah, mine too.
I think so. You're again 2 categories in a row, yours and the Academy lineup.
Yeah, I do think Tom Hanks maybe has a bit of a performance, but the performance that Brad Pitt gives, I was able to get consumed by the film a little bit with him in the landscape of it. So I would just give it by a hair. To me, it's
I was really charmed by Tom Hanks.
If Tom Hanks or Brad Pitt wins, I think that's right. If any of these people win, I love their careers, so I know I'd be happy with any of them.
Sadly, too many of these feel like they're going to be career achievement awards in this one.
Well, if you look at the lineup, it certainly feels that way, doesn't it?
Okay, so moving on. Let's move away from actors and let's jump into sort of a split category, or 2 categories are sort of split. Let's start with Best Original Screenplay.
Cool.
The nominees this year are Knives Out by Rian Johnson, Marriage Story, Noah Baumbach. I hope I said that right.
Baumbach.
1917, Sam Mendes and Christy Wilson Cairns. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino, and Parasite, Bong Joon-ho and Jin Won Han. I hope I said those correctly. All right. This is pretty good. A good lineup here. I can't disagree with any of these.
Yeah, no, these are all
thoughts
very
off
good.
The top.
If there's one I'm going to say for me is the 5th place winner in this case, I would have to say Rian Johnson, and for me, it was enjoyable, and it was lively, and it was a lot of fun, and it had all the elements of an Agatha Christie kind of adaptation movie. I just found the structure to fall apart about halfway through the film. And, you spend this time with the family, and all of a sudden the family is no longer part of the story, and I was like, so I have a knock against that screenplay. The rest of it, if any one of these 4 films wins, I could understand completely why it would. I really liked Marriage Story, and I really liked the screenplay of Marriage Story. Parasite was absolutely brilliant. 1917 was such a ambitious project, and of course, revisionist type history is fascinating through the eyes and the ballpoint pen of, or I guess in this day and age, it would be more of the
keyboard
the keyboard stroke of Quentin Tarantino. So any of those 4 is kind of interesting. I don't know what's jumping out for you.
I would say I agree with you on Knives Out, that it was at its best when it was with the family. Yeah. And then when it goes away from them, and not so much, and that's when I wasn't as enjoying it as much.
And I didn't find the structure supported it, like that choice.
1917. It's a bit of a gut punch story, not bad. For me, the 2 ones are really, and it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. As sometimes I've heard you say in the past, Warren, that sometimes you feel like you've referencing a certain movie. Who knows? I feel like I've seen this before.
It's my catchphrase.
With Quentin Tarantino, I'm at the point where now every time a Tarantino film comes out, I feel like I've seen this before.
Right.
Because largely, we have seen this before. Because he doesn't really deviate. He's hit his butter zone, he's hit his style, and he's just going to keep churning it out for at least one more movie before he retires, which, yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. But, so I did not think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was so great, because like I said, he's done this before. My top two, I would say, are Marriage Story and Parasite. Mm-hmm. I really, really loved both of those scripts.
Yep.
I'm going to say my pick is Parasite.
Okay.
I think the Oscar is going to go to Marriage Story.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What do you think?
I have, so far, I don't think I've deviated, saying this is my personal pick, is this one, and the Oscar's going to be that one. Again, I'm going to go with Parasite for both. I do think it is probably, as I'm, chewing on this a little bit, it is the best script. It has a lot to say about class, and it's really well supported in the story. And the story just hums from beginning to end, and it twists in a way that, anyone else try to execute it would be very difficult, but the way,
Bong Joon-ho,
thank you. The way Bong Joon-ho does it just is such good storytelling. I would say Parasite for both.
Yeah, Parasite for me, it was my favorite script of the year probably, and yeah, like you said, has a lot. It really ties in and does its storytelling on a lot of levels about class and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed the way it hit those. But I do think the Academy is going to go Marriage Story. For some reason, that's kind of the way the wind feels like it's blowing this year. But
cool.
All right. Jumping over to the other half of this coin, the other side of this coin, the best adapted screenplay. Nominees are The Irishman by Stephen Zalian, adapted from a book called, I believe it's called I Hear You Paint Houses. Jojo Rabbit, as adapted by Taika Waititi from, I believe, a book of the same name. Joker, Todd Phillips and Scott Silver. I guess they're saying this counts as adapted because it's from comic books, even though not, as far as I know, an actual complete comic storyline. But I guess since it's based on characters from comics, it's adapted.
It borrows from certain, like there's a little bit of the Killing Joke in there, a little bit, but
Little Women, adapted by Greta Gerwig, based on a book of the same name. I assume the adaptation part comes from the book and not from earlier iterations of the film. And The Two Popes by Anthony McCartan. I believe the book was of the same name. It was a book. Thoughts?
I have to say Little Women would be likely where the Academy is thinking. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's a bit of a makeup call. Greta Gerwig should have really been nominated for Best Director. And I think maybe there's going to be some thought or whether it be conscious or subconscious,
they want to give her a trophy.
Yeah, so I think it's going to go to Greta Gerwig. Myself, Jojo Rabbit, I think, is the best screenplay of the list. So,
yeah, you and I agree. Jojo Rabbit is once again my favorite of the year, and I do think it was the best of this list. I also think that the Oscar is going to go to Greta Gerwig. Little Women was also this version of it's a pretty good adaptation. But yeah, again, I think that there's probably a little bit of that because of the director category thing that they're kind of like feel like, oh, here, we'll give her a trophy, and it's the same thing. So, anything else to say there?
No, that covers it for me.
Okay, let's move on back into the acting categories, and this time we're best performance by a lead actress. So the nominees are Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, Scarlett Johansson once again for Marriage Story this time, Saoirse Ronan for Little Women, Charlize Theron for Bombshell, and Renee Zellweger for Judy. So, fire away. Thoughts?
Of all the performances listed here, I would have to say the most classic Oscar bait type of performance would be Renee Zellweger. Mm-hmm. And she did a fabulous job.
I really loved Judy. Yeah, I thought she was really fantastic in Judy.
Yeah, I would say the problem I had with Tom Hanks, where I mentioned earlier, I just could never get past this is Tom Hanks on the screen.
Yeah,
I never felt that way in Judy. I always thought
the opposite. In fact, I was kind of like I lost it. I wasn't watching Renee Zellweger.
Yeah. So I think that I think that's going to be that'll be kind of the paramount in that category. Not everyone else was really wonderful. If I had to pick one, I would say Scarlett Johansson was probably my favorite performance, just because the nuances, the dips and the heights of that character. I thought Marriage Story was a wonderfully acted film, and so that would probably be my pick. Not that there's anything wrong with the rest of the performances, but yeah. What about you?
And you thought that Zellweger will take the Oscar?
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a pretty stellar chance that she will.
Running it down, this is actually one of the few categories I don't have full coverage in. I did not get to see Harriet. Haven't had a chance. It's now just suddenly became available on streaming.
Nice.
And I hope to watch it this week, but I didn't have a chance to watch it before this show. So I can't rank that one, so there's an asterisk. I thought Charlize Theron was pretty good in Bombshell. Of the four I've seen, I thought she was really good, but I would say if there's one that's, for me a little bit more space, a little clearer, that it's not the top one for me, it's that. The other three, Scarlett and Saoirse Ronan and Renee Zellweger, are all pretty close for me. Saoirse Ronan was really, really good in Little Women.
She's always good.
She is, and she's going to win a lot more awards. She's going to have a long career. And I will say this about Scarlett Johansson for Marriage Story. Marriage Story is a really, really fantastically acted film. And this category is one that makes me almost feel, or this film makes me feel that I almost wish that the Oscars had a category like the SAG Awards for Best Ensemble.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think this is really, this would be a clear, for me, an ensemble winner. Marriage Story, because they all really play off each other.
Yeah.
And for me, when I was watching it, in almost every scene, and the reason I love the ensemble in this film is almost every scene in that film when I watched it, it's never just one actor and the other ones are just kind of going, okay, this is their scene, this is their scene. It's always a group effort, and it's always playing tennis back and forth, and that's between the leads, that's with the supports, that's with everybody in it.
Yeah, Julie Haggerty was awesome in it as
Laura Dern, and it's so like that.
Yeah.
If it was, like I said, so if it was an ensemble, I would give it to that. I'm going to say that my favorite performance of the year, and it's like razor sharp, maybe not quite razor sharp, but between Judy, Little Women, and Marriage Story, my favorite was Judy. With Renee Zellweger, really, like you said, disappeared into that role.
Yeah.
And I felt she was really, really engaging. My Oscar prediction right now is Saoirse Ronan taking for Little Women. I think Saoirse Ronan is going to get a trophy.
Oh, interesting.
Next Sunday. So I don't know.
So a little bit of we're a little bit different in that one.
We are.
Yeah. And going back to Renee Zellweger, like her. When she steps onto the stage to do the performances, when she's doing this series of performances in the UK, every time you can see the subtlety of where her character's at that moment, and will she make it through? Will she not? And will she rise to the occasion? She's a professional, yet she's got an absolutely tragic circumstances, and she was wearing all of that. In that performance, so
to me it was almost like at times when we were watching Judy, I felt like it was almost a performance within a performance.
Yeah.
Like you're watching her playing Judy, and there's a Judy off stage who can barely keep herself standing, but then when she's out for people in front of an audience, she can just somehow finds this energy to prop herself up and create and give a performance of what the world thinks is Judy Garland.
Exactly.
So I thought maybe that's why I really, that one just sort of sneaked ahead for me. But
yeah, no, exactly. And I think it is that sort of classic mold of, what the Academy would vote for. So, yeah.
All right. Moving on to Best Performance by an Actor in the Lead Role.
Cool.
And the nominees are Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory, Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver for Marriage Story, Joaquin Phoenix for for Joker, and Jonathan Pryce, The Two Popes. This is the other category where I didn't have full coverage. I have not seen Pain and Glory. Again, just became available for streaming, but I didn't get a chance yet. So I can't accurately or informatively speak about Antonio Banderas' performance.
Okay.
All right. How about you? How's your coverage on this one?
Not too bad. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't see The Two Popes, so I didn't see Jonathan Pryce, who's a wonderful actor indeed. He's always giving great performances in his films.
Did you see Pain and Glory?
No, Pain and Glory, no.
No, okay, neither. Hey? Okay, we're both bad students on that one. Okay, so of the three you've seen, what are your thoughts in there?
Well, Leonardo DiCaprio, even though he's nominated as Best Actor, and he has the gratitude, or not the gratitude, but the wonderful association that he does for all his achievements. Yeah, I still think he is somewhat underrated in this performance. Like, he gives a great performance, especially those moments where, where he's dealing with the fact that he maybe has been, he's coming off set of blowing his lines and things like that. There's just some wonderful moments in that.
I actually think his performance is better than the film.
Yeah.
Not to downplay the other people involved or the achievements of other people in filmmaking is collaborative, but his performance, I hate to say deserved, but I almost say it's a better performance than this film deserves. Like, just my personal opinion, Tarantino, it's his style, but I feel like his stuff is sometimes a little cheesy and hammy, and that's the Tarantino style, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like DiCaprio's performance here is better than that. It belongs in a better film.
Yeah, well,
my personal opinion only. Sorry.
It certainly is a really good performance, and it's I would say one of his best performances. Of course, Joaquin Phoenix. The moment that film was released, everyone was talking Oscar buzz right from day one, and deservedly so. Like, he's plays it extremely well, and he is so intense, and he carries the film on his back and does it in such a wonderful way. But at the same token too, that's a bit of the Joaquin Phoenix brand that we're seeing, is that intensity and that type of role and that type of character that is so intense. But that's not to underplay his deserved nomination in this. And then Adam Driver, the notes that he sort of hits throughout the whole film, like, he's not a caricature. He's quite the opposite of that. He is definitely hitting different beats at different moments, and different things are going on. And so I'd have to say, like, if I was to give out the Oscar, I would give it to Adam Driver, to be honest. But I think Joaquin Phoenix has got this so wrapped up with just the pure campaign of what has become, part of Oscars, that I can't see that not being his to lose. It's his to lose. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I thought DiCaprio was almost better than the film. Jonathan Pryce, perfectly decent performance in The Two Popes. Again, I didn't find it was really blow away. Great actor. And when I knew it was him, though, this would have been like, okay, he's playing, and that's the performance I expected. So that's, I don't know if it's a little, it didn't blow me away. It wasn't like, oh my God, wow, like he really tapped into something there. So, and again, same as last category, Marriage Story. If it was an ensemble, I'd be all over it, because I think Adam Driver is really, really fantastic. This is maybe, and I've seen him in some good things, but this is maybe my favorite performance of his career.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I just can't, I can't extricate it from the performances of the other actors. It just seemed like the whole cast is just one living, breathing thing acting. Yeah. And Joaquin Phoenix, while, this is a debate for another day, talking about, I'm not a fan of Joker. Like, I'm not overly a fan of Joker as a complete film, but parts of it I think are really great. And I think the greatest part of it was the performance. Joaquin Phoenix, I thought, really gave a really strong performance, even at times when if I didn't necessarily think it was written all that great. I thought his performance was really, really good.
And that's because he's such a good actor.
Yeah, like he's magnetic. He truly is.
And he dials it in. Like he's so intense in the moment.
So I think that was my favorite performance of the year of this list, and I also think that's the way the Academy is going. I think it's his to lose, like you said.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and I can't really think of anyone else I would have put in this category, subbed people out, but yeah. So
I think that brings us to 6. So we have three remaining. A pretty big 3.
Pretty big 3 for me, yeah. We'll move right along into cinematography. So, the nominees this year are The Irishman, Rodrigo Prieto, I hope I said that right, Joker, Lawrence Sher, The Lighthouse, Jaron Blaschke, I think it is, 1917, The Legend, the man, the myth, the legend, Roger Deakins.
Yeah.
And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Robert Richardson. All right, Warren, take us through this. What do you think? Thoughts?
Each of these films look absolutely stunning. You couldn't get different looking films if you tried.
A lot of diversity a lot of diversity in this category, if not diversity in the Oscars this year in other ways. But.
Yeah, there you go. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, my favorite part of that film was the cinematography. Mm-hmm. It just felt like 1960s LA was just spilling off the canvas, and just the nuances of what seems to be beyond the frame, mm-hmm. And just the way it was captured was just so captivating, and the color palettes and everything dealing with the look of that film was just so stunning. That was my favorite part. And even though the film, it did feel like it maybe dragged a little bit.
That's nothing to do with the cinematography. That's
and that's my point, is that the cinematography actually saves it, because you have something quite gorgeous to look at. Like it's like you can spend time.
Even if we're spending a long time there, at least it's nice to look at.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. Like it's a wonderful view. This is what I'm saying. Like it may be not might be going much on in the landscape, but man, it's
damn, it looks good.
Yeah. So that's for me. It was like that. Of course, just the ambition of 1917 is just phenomenal. Like when you really consider, okay, they had to get their heads around doing these really long extended takes to try to seamlessly put it together, and to really think about what that means for blocking. Like certain beats had to happen at certain points as they were already, maybe 10 minutes into a take, and to make sure that the camera is at the right position at the right time to capture just that. And not only that, but it captures it in just such a visceral and engaging kind of way. And there's just so many sequences where it's like, holy cow, like you're looking at something where you feel like, I'm not sure I've seen something like this before. There's so many original looks to that film. That was like,
it is. And you know what? Yeah. Also, to build on what you're saying about the blocking of scenes and stuff in here.
Yeah.
In particular, what I really think really makes this a standout film is that night sequence.
Oh, the night sequence is
with the burning church. When the character goes into a town with a burning church, the lighting setups there, and everything. And we think that all of that was done and had to be set up dynamically as the character is moving into and through a long, probably a 10 or 12 minute take there.
Yeah, and I don't think we've seen a scene like that before.
No,
and that's why I'm talking about where else it's like, whoa.
It was so stunning the way in that, and the shadow and the darkness of nighttime then allowed it seemed like they did things in that scene like that. Like with reveals and what's going on and like characters hiding and you're not quite sure what's going on, where in another film you'd be doing that by editing and by cutting to different perspectives. But here it was all done in one continuous camera move, but still managing to hide characters and have reveals and get you sort of a little bit confused about the geography, so you were a little bit off balance, to make you feel like the character did, like sort of you're getting lost in the nighttime because, oh my God, it's dark, it's light, it's bright, and to do that in a dynamically moving shot, oh my God, all in camera.
Yeah, and so the ambition of it is just phenomenal, but then the execution of it is really what sells me. Every year, there's always films where I'm like, oh man, I wish I didn't see the trailer. I wish I would just have discovered it.
Same.
And for me, 1917 was that one. Because I saw the trailer and I read a bit about the film, and then of course I was going to the theater thinking, okay, this is going to be kind of gimmicky. but it wasn't. It was like the choice to do it as that sort of seamless type of photography was really the best way to tell that story.
Yeah.
But then there's the sequences with the plane where I'm like, oh God, I wish I didn't see that.
I know. You would have been so blown away by the fact that it happened, but they just put that front and center in the marketing.
And the moment that he jumps out of the trench and he's running, complete like opposite direction of where everyone else is running, and that whole sequence
across, he's running perpendicular to the
exactly,
crowds.
It creates chills watching that scene. But
I think they did that with literally hundreds of extra, plus crew, the camera, everything moving seamlessly.
Yeah, and I just only wish I would have discovered that.
Yeah,
and so in a way, the trailer underserves the power of the cinematography, because if you would have discovered that in that moment in that film, you would have been less like, holy
The trailer gave away,
God.
I don't recall giving away the night sequence specifically.
No, it did not, that one.
But the plane and that jumping out of the trench running scene were two of the major, moments in a film that is a non-stop trick of like where they hide in the edits and like how cleverly it was done and how awesomely it was executed. Those are two moments that really are like, holy, now here's a really tough thing to do, and they gave them both away.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because in a film that's seamless like that, like Birdman's another one, but Birdman doesn't have the action sequences that this does. And so the power of it is really these quiet moments that have these slow builds, and all of a sudden you get a moment where it's kind of like, wait a minute, what am I seeing here? Right? And all of a sudden it's almost like a sort of slow turn of pace. Where it's like, and for example, all of a sudden the plane on the horizon, right? And all of a sudden, it's you see the trajectory kind of changing, and all of a sudden it has the dynamic tension that it creates, that it's just so wonderful. And to have that discovered as the first time within the story would have served the film so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunately that we live in an era when the marketing has to use that to entice you to come into the theater. Yeah. Another
one, I got to say, Lighthouse is really, really amazing. I love the way this was shot. It was shot using 100-year-old lenses, and it's watching the film is like really like almost like watching a moving surrealist painting, and it was really, I loved it. It was gorgeous, and it was a very strange film at times, but I would watch it again, particularly on the big screen, just to watch the photography of it again. It was just gorgeous.
And the Joker has such a great look.
Joker really awesomely, the cinematography hand in hand with the production design, which, also will probably get noted for this one too, of recreating a late 70s, early 80s New York as Gotham. Really, really fantastic.
And it serves the story, it serves the film, and it's such a great look. It looks like an origin story as if it was from the 70s. Like, you feel like all of a sudden you're dropped back into 1979 watching a Joker film done by like a Scorsese or something.
Yeah, I can't think of another one I would throw in here off the top of my head that would knock any of these off the list. If any of them were going to get knocked for something, it'd kind of be The Irishman, where it was good, but it wasn't anything blow away. And I think this is a film that's nominated a lot just because it's a Scorsese mob biopic, or not biopic, epic, but it was all right, but nothing blow away.
The only one I would throw out there, and we haven't seen it because it didn't come to theaters and it's not available by streaming yet, is the Terrence Malick one.
Oh, just
based on
right.
Some of the
Was it out last year though? Did it qualify for the award season, or did it?
I thought it had a limited release in December.
I think you might be right. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to see it yet, but that's a possibility that would have knocked one of these out. And if it did, it would be The Irishman. It would knock out.
Yeah.
Of these, it's close. I really, really, really like The Lighthouse, but I think, just like you said, the ambition plus the execution of 1917 is my personal favorite, and I also think that's the way that the Academy is going to vote.
I ditto for the exact reasons. Yeah.
All right. 2 to go. Let's move on.
Right.
These are we're really into, I think for you and I, the real heavyweight area here of what we really look forward to all night. The reason we stay up late, the reason we sit through a bunch of the nonsense of it, they do in modern times. We're making it more like I guess no host again this year, so they've done away with making it feel like a nighttime talk show.
Hurrah.
Yeah.
Only for the better. Yeah, no, this is exactly the big categories.
These are the two that you and I particularly are really, this is our most interesting ones.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with Best Director.
Okay.
And the nominees this year: And this is a category which has a lot of debate, and if you want to say controversy, maybe this year. Yeah. Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, Todd Phillips for Joker, Sam Mendes for 1917, Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. Warren, kick us off.
All right. So let's first talk about Parasite. I would say the direction in that film is quite sophisticated because he's taking, it's not a genre picture. Like at moments it's a thriller, at moments there's some comedy, at moments it's a horror film. And the thing is, it's not muddled or messy. He does it in a way that it feels natural. There's tension throughout, certainly. There's lots of suspense, but there's these other elements that are weaved in that anybody who's of a lesser craftsman, I don't think could pull off. And so there's some there's some mastery going to the direction that he's doing. Yeah. And there is no throwaway scenes. Like every scene just moves and builds from the last and they move to the next.
They all serve it.
And it ups the stakes and it just changes. And then there's a moment halfway through, everything changes and it still makes sense. It doesn't feel contrived. It doesn't feel like a gimmick. It works. So it's highly sophisticated.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not any one genre.
Yeah.
It transitions, but those transitions feel seamless to me. And I don't want to say they're jarring, because jarring is sort of, when you say that, it's like, well, it sort of threw you out, and it doesn't. But they definitely, like, when it changes gears and changes to a different sort of genre or style, it's like, it affects me, and I'm like, whoa, and it just all of a sudden pulled me into a different film.
Yeah.
But not in a way that I'm like, whoa, I got just kicked out of what I was watching. It's like, it serves the narrative of what's going on, and now what I'm watching is different, but they all go together, and they're all, it's almost like telling a story from a different perspective or something, right? But or they're like different courses of a meal, but it's like got a continuous story throughout the whole meal that it takes you on a journey. But it's like, wow, and
it's just not doing it for the sake of doing it. There's commentary to it, because he's saying something about, right now I'm going to talk about class in this kind of a way,
and it's going to sort of make you feel a certain way, and now I'm going to change the perspective on it and make you think about this issue from another perspective, and just masterful storytelling in that regard, in my opinion.
Exactly. Then let's talk a little bit about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think probably one of the best scenes of the year is in that movie, and it's the
ranch scene.
The ranch scene. It's certainly a Western. It is so tense-filled. There's so much suspense. You're squirming in your chair as Brad Pitt's, doing that slow walk, and we're, panning beside him, and there's people on just like an old Western, the townsfolk are all kind of gathering in, but in this case they're a little bit more threatening, and you're going to wonder what he's going to discover. And
that's my favorite scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Of the whole film, like, I'm not as big a fan of it as you are. I'm not always a Tarantino guy, but that scene, it's about 15 minutes long or so, that sequence.
Maybe not quite that
maybe
long.
Not, maybe about 10.
Yeah.
But it's
12 maybe. Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that scene. Like that, and like you said,
incredible.
The tension got me in, and I'm a Western guy, and absolutely in that moment, the whole thing has elements of being a neo-Western, but that one most specifically is when it was the deepest into that.
Exactly. And it very much felt like a Sergio Leone moment, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I think Quentin Tarantino's on record as saying that's an influence of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, there's always a moment in all of Tarantino's films. There's one scene, or maybe two, sometimes three if we're lucky, that is just a blowaway scene. Like if you just take that scene, it is one to be studied. And you talk about any of his films, you could pull out, if I'm thinking Inglourious Basterds, okay, it's the pub scene, or it's the scene at the beginning of the film, or it's the standoff scene, or it's all these different things, so he's always enjoyable to watch, because he will definitely borrow from other players, other pieces, and he put it together in a way that it's really just engaging. All right. Well, and then we talked a bit about the cinematography of Sam Mendes in 1917, but really the execution of that film, it sits on Sam Mendes.
Such an unbelievable.
Yeah.
The ambition, like you said.
Yeah.
To do this, here we're gonna do like one that appears to be a single take, with like like you said, Birdman, but Birdman's is much smaller cast, and for the most
you're in
part,
a building. You're in miles of
exactly.
trenches.
Now Birdman takes its chances. It takes things like the part where Michael Keaton goes out onto the street and has to walk naked down the street to go from the front of the back door to get in the front of the theater. That's like a really it does take its chances where it goes, this will be a really difficult sequence to do.
Yeah.
But nothing compared to what they're doing, like full-scale staged battles, trench warfare, World War I.
Yeah, big fields.
The plane crash we already talked about.
Bodies.
That night, the bodies, and so those aren't, I don't know if they, added to them with CG after the fact, but they look so realistic and so gory, and just the actors having to go through that and just creating those things, and the night sequence that we talked about, like the ambition of even attempting this film is just insane and incredibly well executed.
Yeah. Exactly. It is an achievement for sure, and that is one that's going to be on people's mind when they vote for this category. And then, of course, the Joker, to take the idea of what everyone sort of in this day and age constitutes as what is a comic book adaptation, but to kind of find a new way of, or maybe not new, but definitely a different way of exploring that topic through a different kind of lens. Todd Phillips does a very good job of basically giving us a different kind of adaptation film, and certainly I would say a more artfully done one than I would say most.
It does not.
You would see.
There is almost, if not completely, zero of the tropes you find in other superhero films. Not to their detriment. They have their places, and I enjoy them. And as a lifelong comic book fan, I enjoy comic book superhero movies. But this is, I don't want to say it's not the anti-comic book movie, because it's not. I don't really think it's deconstructing that genre or anything, but it's just like it is completely taking a comic book character out of that genre of film and placing it in a much different kind of film. And it's there are things about it. Like I said earlier, as an overall film, it's not my favorite, but there's definitely a lot of great things going on.
Yeah, and I think what I appreciate about that film so much is the ambiguity that he does in the storytelling. What exactly is the reality? What exactly is,
you're never quite sure.
Yeah,
what's real and what's not.
Yeah, what exactly can we really trust this narrative, and can we actually trust the narrative or of the origin story of Joker? It's really ultimately the question that it comes down to. How much of it is based in reality? How much of it is based in just the perception of what's going on? And really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because he's an anarchist. So I thought it was quite clever. It's a bit of a mind trap, and it's one of those films that I think you have to watch it again and maybe another time just to really either see how much that holds up and how much it maybe falls apart, and that'll be the direction. What was your take on The Irishman?
The final one in this category, The Irishman. I hate to knock such a legendary director as Martin Scorsese.
If you do, we're going to meet you in the parking lot.
Yeah, but this award,
get some angry phone calls.
Best director for The Irishman. No, this is a career achievement award. This is not a really superly well directed film. This is I think, and I would say this of some a few of his more recent films. I think because Martin Scorsese has now achieved that legendary status, and I think often a lot of studios or producers won't say no to him or won't rein him in, and I think he's sort of become, in my opinion, a bit of an self-indulgent filmmaker.
Ooh.
And this film, there is no reason there's no reason for this to be 3.5 hours long. It is incredibly slow. The middle hour of it is nothing less than a slog to try to get through it, and
well, let me ask you this then.
It's boring at times. It definitely needed to be edited, and like I said, it has no pace to it at all.
Yeah.
So it's just Scorsese felt like watching these actors. He recruited his all-stars from his career, or most of his all-stars, and just sent them out there to play. This is essentially like an all-star game. Nobody's really, there's nothing at stake here. And I don't know how much you want to say this plays into being in the directing aspect. I think like its budget was something like $150 million.
Well, not much, eh?
And this film could have been made
on CG, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was on this ridiculous notion of CG. This film could have been made with younger actors and makeup for $70 million and a lot more responsibly. The CG they chose to do here, like to de-age the actors, it's not good. They don't look de-aged. They look just more like they're old guys that are smoothed over. And it just, so much of this film does not work. And if it was not Martin Scorsese making it, the people making it would have stepped in and said, no, don't do this. And I think like early in the year when we heard stories like the reason it was on Netflix is because traditional studios wouldn't finance it and wouldn't make it with Scorsese. I'm like, what studio won't make a Scorsese mob picture like with Al Pacino and Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro and what? Like, and I was like baffled. I'm like, what is going on? And then when I saw it, I realized it's because he showed them probably early tests of this motion of this CGI de-aging and said, I'm going to make it with this. And they looked at him and said, yeah, no, Robert De Niro doesn't look like he's 30 here. He looks like he's in his 60s. Then you just smoothed him out. And no, we don't think, and I don't know if the super long cut of it was a thing that became once he got to Netflix, they wouldn't say no to anything. He's like, well, here's my chance to make a 4-hour movie. But
yeah, and I was going to say the other thing is the time. Like if also you show in with like a script that's going to be 300 pages, they're going to be like, well, we're going to have to cut this down because there's no way we can make money in the theaters showing like 3-4 hour films.
No. So I kind of, I doubt we'll ever hear. I kind of think it was probably initially they're like, Marty, we don't need to be spending $180 million on this when we're not sure, 150, when we're not sure what it's going to return. And I think when he got to Netflix and they're like, we'll do it for you, I think he was like, okay, here, look, now I can make a 3.5 hour film.
That's interesting.
That I think maybe if it hadn't been for that CGI aspect, and if this would have been a film that was coming in more around like a $90 million range, so if a traditional, a studio wanted to make it with him, I think then here's a thing where maybe he goes and shoots a 3-hour version of it, and then they fight with him a bit, and you get it down to like 2:45, but shooting out to 3.5, it's like, I don't have to cut nothing now. And it just, like I said, that middle hour is a slog.
So let me ask you this here. Okay. So you're saying it's a career achievement type nomination.
Yep.
But here you have a director who did Raging Bull, lost out to Ordinary People, right? So he lost out to Robert Redford, and then 10 years later, when he did the mob, Goodfellas. Yeah. So when he did Goodfellas, he lost out to Dances with Wolves and Kevin Costner.
Yep.
Right. And so here you have like just these films that stand the test of time, and you have a director who definitely has, you can certainly stack. And so, earlier Oscar snubs, I wouldn't say snubs, but, you can't go back and correct that.
No.
So
hindsight really accentuates how wrong those calls were.
Yeah.
But I think at the time we knew those were wrong calls.
Oh, I think it's so too. But so is it really all that bad all of a sudden to say, what?
It is. And to correct mistakes like that, that's what career achievement or lifetime achievement awards are for, to perpetuate the makeup call.
But people hate the Lifetime Achievement Awards. That's why, Albert Hitchcock's his thank you speech was one word, and it was thank you.
Yeah.
And he walked away, right?
So he walked away, but still you know what? You're still awarding art, which is totally subjective. Yeah. So I don't think Martin Scorsese needs us to tell him that Goodfellas was a better film than Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
Does he really need that reassurance? Do filmmakers really need that? This is like a lot of this too is just rich people giving each other trophies.
Absolutely.
So
that's where it started.
Do these guys really do they really? Is it that mean? Like, is Scorsese sitting there at night like grinding his teeth that he lost out? And I finally better get this one. They owe me a makeup call. This isn't sports, and I hate the idea of the makeup calls, and I just hate that they keep getting perpetuated when this is clearly not the best directed film this year.
Well, and for me, where the loss is now, someone like Greta Gerwig, who deserves to be in this category, is now not.
Exactly. No women nominated in Best Director this year at all. And Greta Gerwig, Little Women was a good one, and I, off the top of my head, lost. There was another one.
I wonder if you're thinking of The Farewell, maybe. and Lulu Wayne.
You know what? Maybe that's the one. I think that's one of the ones I heard about. Sheepers. Yeah. Anyways, there was a couple, and yeah. So yeah, like honestly, Scorsese could have been left out of this category, and
yeah.
I think it's unfortunate that somebody didn't even get a nomination for that. Like somebody like a Greta Gerwig or someone else lost out on a nomination for this category because they're giving out a Lifetime Achievement Award nomination at the very least to Martin Scorsese. I really...
And there's certainly probably people who disagree who think that maybe it is one of the top 5 directors.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And again, we're scoring art here. So how do you really do that? Well, that's very pretentious of us to want to score art and very first worldly of us to sit here on a podcast in my apartment where I have no fear of sleeping cold tonight or getting blown up. We have very first worldly problems that I'm sitting here being salty that Martin Scorsese might get given a trophy by other rich people.
But you did deck out your apartment quite nicely with all the Oscar fare. Like, this is quite nice. I haven't got to the popcorn bar yet. So,
hey, well, you know what? I spare no expense for the Oscar special every year.
This is great.
But yeah, so this is very first worldly of me to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm salty because one rich person is going to give another rich person a trophy and I disagree with them. So, But, all right.
Your picks.
My picks. My personal favorite on this list of that, and yeah. My pick is, so close. And this is probably going to change 5 times in the next 7 days. Right now, sitting in the chair, I'm saying Sam Mendes was my personal pick for the incredible achievement that is 1917.
Okay.
And I think, damn it. And I'm almost changing right now, waffling as I'm saying it. That I almost want to say, no, my favorite was Parasite, Bong Joon-ho. And I think that's the way. I think it's an upset. I think not an upset by no means. I think he's fully deserving of it. I think Bong Joon-ho is going to win for Parasite. And I'm back and forth whether or not that's my 117.
I'm the exact opposite of you. My pick is Bong Joon-ho because of the sophistication of the storytelling.
Yeah.
It is just interweaving different genres, which I don't think many people can do as well or as effectively or as well executed as he does. Mm-hmm. I do think the Academy is going to give it to Sam Mendes for 1917 because of it's a little bit more of a traditional kind of.
It's so weird. Like this is two things of the. It's this is what I love about filmmaking too. Like, it's such a sophisticated art form that the things that we are both, and we're debating these, and these two are our top picks one way or the other. I think.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's like, the things that we think make it a great achievement for Sam Mendes are completely different than the things that we think makes it an achievement for Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah.
But yet they're both
incredible
thing. And you know what? I'm going to throw a third one in here. Somebody that did not get recognized that maybe could have. Another person like other than Greta Gerwig. I really think Taika Waititi. He's an amazing director that very easily could have been on this list just because of the sophistication of the storytelling in Jojo Rabbit and the way that Taika, in most of his films, particularly when explaining Jojo, is such a master of blending tones that in 1 minute you're laughing outrageously at a thing that is almost very nearly a full-on comedy and a satire, and then in the very same scene, all of a sudden it can turn and gut punch you like with very deep, dark emotions.
Absolutely.
The butterfly scene, which was probably my favorite scene of a film this year.
Yeah, satire is hard. Like, all comedy is hard, but satire in particular is hard.
Just walking that razor line, it walks it too, especially when talking about, like, fascism in Nazi Germany. What a topic to tackle as a satire.
Exactly.
And it's and that's a similar thing. Like, that would be a different kind of thing would be rewarding. But okay.
All right. Now the moment
that we've all been waiting for, the big debate of the night.
Yeah. All right.
Best picture.
I'm gonna get some water while you read the list.
Okay.
I'm gonna
some champagne.
You know what? Why am I drinking water for?
Because after promising you that I would have champagne here, I completely forgot about. I remember 10 minutes before you got here that I said I was gonna get glasses and a tiny bottle of champagne.
That's right.
So
I'm gonna help myself to the popcorn bar while you read them out.
I'm making a note right now to next year to make sure I have champagne here, as well as crunchy snacks that we can eat while we do the podcast. Because there's nothing people listening to the podcast like better than hosts eating food on on microphone.
Oh, you got Chicago style. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Okay, so this year, out of a possibility of 10, this year we had nine nominees, and they are Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. That's a heck of a lineup.
That is, you know what? And here's the thing. This year, I would say more so than I would say the last 10 at least, all the films I think can make a case to be a Best Picture nominated.
This is a really great list, and even with like there's ones that we didn't get to see that I've heard are really that some people are saying it's criminal they weren't on here.
Yeah.
Uncut Gems is one of them, and it just popped up on Netflix. So I didn't watch it just because I've been tied up with trying to get dot my I's and cross my T's for Oscars. But it's definitely I'm going to watch it right away because I've heard phenomenal things about it. Midsummer I heard is really great. Honey Boy I heard was really fantastic. So yeah, a lot of things that could have been on this list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think this is a really solid list. I would go forth and say, why don't we go through and say, you know what, here's one quality about this film that could make it the top. Now, of course, I do think there's probably about 3 different tiers here. I do see about 3 or 4 films that are kind of the real top tier.
Ever since they've gone to this more than 5 possibilities for the category, I've always started every year kind of looking and go, well, what are my real 5, quote unquote, for what, if it was only 5, which ones do I think would be it? But yeah, you want to break them down one at a time and then we'll see what our top 5 are and go from there?
And it doesn't have to be that long. Just a quick hitter of, hey, you know what? I think this is why Ford v Ferrari might have a shot.
We don't have commercial breaks to make, so make as long as you want. So let's go for it. Let's kick it off. You start us off. What do you like about Ford v Ferrari?
You know what? When we saw it in the theater, we walked away going, okay, it was a film that all of a sudden felt like at the beginning of the Oscar season of films that were coming out, and it was exciting, and it just felt like a complete film, minus maybe the last 12 minutes or so. But for me, the parts where the racing was going was just enthralling. It was exciting. It was a good buddy picture. There's lots of chemistry going on. It was a story that sort of kept you into the film the whole time, and I think it does deserve to be on this list for sure.
Agree with everything there. I found the racing parts exciting, and that's not always easy to accomplish on film. Sometimes racing films don't always have that energy. I love Christian Bale. I almost could have seen him, in one of the acting categories. I could have knocked.
Actually, I'm a bit surprised he wasn't. To be honest,
I could have knocked either one of the Irishman nominees out in favor of Christian Bale. Nice. Maybe I'm not that salty about it because I know he's going to continue to turn in amazing performances, and I know he'll be up there again. I thought Matt Damon was also really good. Like you said, the two of them had great chemistry. It was a fun, engaging film. It had drama to it. It also had fun moments to it. Really, really great. I've off the top of my head forgotten the name of the actress, but I could have seen her almost. It was a big year for supporting actress, but in a different year, I could have seen her nominated for a supporting actress role. The film was very immersive technically, it's editing, it's sound designs, it's production design, everything. It was very immersive. You felt like it was in the 60s. Top to bottom, really great film, like you said, and I agree with you, except for about the last 12 minutes when it felt like it could have ended like 10 to 12 minutes earlier.
Yeah, the film ended and it kind of had another little piece.
It did. It was almost like almost like that last bit was like, and here's Matt Damon's Oscar reel, and they were kind of like they could for your consideration, and he didn't make the cut. Yeah. But
and Tracy Letts had a great moment where also you're like, oh, this is how it connects to him, his grandfather, and his motivations. Like there's a lot of nice moments in it, and especially Christian Bale, like he's again, like he always is, he's dialed into having good moments on screen. So I guess there's a. Do I think it's going to win? Probably not.
Well, we'll get back to that.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Let's not jump the gun here. Let's work our way to them. Okay. Next on the list is The Irishman. Now, The Irishman, I know I've been beating up on it a lot on this episode.
So do you think it's going to win Best Picture, Neil?
Warren, quit jumping ahead. We haven't even got the envelope out yet, okay?
Okay.
Settle down.
Okay, I'm very excited.
There are good things in this film. And I think there's a version of this film
that's in there
that belongs here on this list. I think there is a 2 hours and change version of this film that could belong on here, where I could close my eyes to the fact that I didn't think the CG was really great, and I think they could have cast different actors, but the performances, maybe when I'm seeing a little bit less of them, maybe you cut down some of the dry parts, and maybe these performances tighten up a bit, and I like Joe Pesci a little bit more, I like the Pacino one a little more, I like Robert De Niro a little bit more. A better pace makes it a more watchable film, and I don't get so bored and bogged down in the middle of it. I don't think the 3.5-hour version of this is the best picture, but like I said, maybe in an alternate, in a different Mandela universe, there's a version of this film that did go theatrical and was therefore cut to like 2 hours and 20 minutes that maybe does belong on this list for me. Not this version, but that's just me.
Nice. Now, I know with Jojo Rabbit, that is your favorite film of the year.
It is.
So why don't you give us a bit of a breakdown on why you think it deserves to be Best Picture?
Jojo Rabbit, I think, when I'm looking at Best Picture, and maybe we should have led with this, but I think Best Picture comes down to what constitutes a Best Picture is that filmmaking is, for my money, the most collaborative art form there is. Because everybody from, the cinematographer, the production design, the set painters, the actors, the score, the sound design, the editing, the director has to know when to guide the people and put his 2 cents in, and when to sit back and let the players go and let the people do their jobs. And he needs to know how to communicate with, the director and the cinematographer need to have, a communication to where the cinematographer knows how to create the look the director wants, and everybody has to, and that has to also work with the production designers, and the sound people have to make, capture what that world sounds like, and the actors have to then take a script, because a script is, as I've said probably before on the show, but I feel like a script is a starting point and maybe a roadmap of where we're going, but then the actors along the way have to bring something to it. They have to inform the story too. So the script is a jumping off point for the actors to start from, and maybe a place, a guide for them, but they also have to be allowed to do their thing, and a great director has to be in there directing the film, knowing when to take the wheel and steer a bit, and when to just back off and let the actors drive. And all these things have to come together against all odds, all as a perfect storm. Every great film is a perfect storm of, it all has to come together at one time, and everybody has to be having their best day on the same day, and to make it to Best Picture, to become one of the best pictures of the year. Specifically getting back to Jojo Rabbit, the supporting actors, particularly for me, Sam Rockwell. I'm a huge Sam Rockwell fan, so you put, favorite, one of my favorite actors plus one of my favorite films of the year with one of my favorite directors, and blah blah blah. You're
There's a pretty good chance you're going to like it.
The math is lining up here.
Yeah.
So, and he's amazing in it. And like we talked earlier, that you have to see this film twice to start really appreciating the nuance of it. So that, I think the young actor. Can you pull up while I'm talking, can you pull it up on IMDb just so we can throw their names out?
Oh, of who you want?
Jojo. Could you throw up
you want
Jojo?
The kid actors?
Yeah, the young actor who played Jojo was really, really fantastic. For a young actor he shows a great range. We already talked about how this film is a bit of a roller coaster ride in terms of tone.
Roman Griffin Davis.
This young boy, he can't be more than 10 or 12, and he shows such great range that there's parts here that are like ridiculous comedy when the children are at a Nazi youth camp, and it's played as a like almost a Boy Scout camp, and they're learning how to burn books, and they play this ridiculousness so funny. Yeah. And his imaginary friend is Adolf Hitler, but then there's the straight up drama points, like when he finds the great shoe scene. Oh, yeah. The scene when he finds his mother. I love that scene. And it's like, oh my God. And what's the young actress who plays the girl in the wall? I've lost her name.
Thomasin McKenzie.
Okay. She plays this young Jewish girl who's hiding from the Nazis in the walls in the attic of Jojo's home. And she's amazing. That there's times when they can play, as kids, and they are kids, and yet she also has an incredible, gravitas as, a girl who's hiding for her life and is separated from the rest of her family. So all these actors and, the Scarlett, who's nominated for this film, in the supporting role. And those actors are all having that great day. The script is incredibly well written, and the tone just blends and changes seamlessly. And where I think Taika is one of my favorite filmmakers right now, because he is able to blend this in a single scene. In the butterfly scene, we blend from the wonder of a small child following a butterfly to one of the best gut punches of the year to make me feel just awful all of a sudden in a cinema in one scene. And for me, that's why this belongs on this list. That's why Jojo Rabbit belongs on this list, because it was such an incredible confluence of all these forces from all these various disciplines, and the production design of creating, bringing back Nazi Germany, and it totally, and the style of it, like the opening. We've talked before on another show about like the opening title sequence where it's comparing Nazi Germany to Beatlemania, like the mania and the cult of personality of Hitler in the 1930s rising to power with Beatlemania, and like so incredibly well, like so many things blend and work in this film. And I can keep babbling forever about it. I love it so much.
Well, let me jump in. Let me jump in and tell you why the Joker deserves to be here before you can get played off with some Oscar music. So no, I think you made a very impassioned reason why Jojo Rabbit deserves to be on the list. And just before I talk about the Joker, I can see actually Jojo Rabbit winning. Like once every couple of years, you always have one film that's kind of like, oh, Spotlight won. You have that moment of where it's a quieter film that sort of is in that sort of spot. And for me, that's Jojo Rabbit. It certainly can all of a sudden capture the enthusiasm of people voting for it, and it certainly deserves to be there. And I could see that for all the good points that you say. All right, so
talk about the Joker.
Yeah, now don't go too far into that popcorn, because I'm not going to be talking as long about the Joker as you were for Jojo Rabbit. But I do see Joker as being one of the front runners for this category, simply because it is a strong stream of conscious film. It encapsulates a time and a space, a look and a feel and an experience for those who are watching it. Everyone knows this character. In fact, this character has won an Oscar before. And I don't think in anyone's mind that if you were to do, or at least anyone sitting in 2018 going, okay, in 2019 we're going to have a Joker film, and then people going, oh God, really? We're going to retread that water? How can you ever top Heath Ledger in that conception of Christopher Nolan's Batman world? How can you ever revisit that and do it any kind of justice or do anything different with it? And not only was something done differently with it, but it definitely has a strong voice in that it has something to say, but it also has a very strong performance. And in that stream of consciousness, we're not quite sure what reality is. We're on a wild ride, and we can honestly see that this is where his origins can be from, and this is where it's taken it to. And in that, it also has a very strong production design. It has a strong look. It has these just moments of where we get to spend with him, and he's doing like this dance. But I do feel that when we watch him in those moments, we're watching an evolution of a character. He is embracing the sounds in his head to this music that he's dancing to, that is going to become where we know where this character is going, and that is chaos. And to spend the time with him to kind of, get to know him in that way and to know where his outcome is coming, it is just this sort of beautiful tension that exists in that film. So, I think there's a lot of strengths to the Joker, and if the Joker wins Best Picture, I would not be shocked.
I would not be surprised either. Next on the list, Little Women. This is I found it to be a really entertaining film. This was my Christmas Day film last year. I'm going to tell you this. I've never read the book. And I've never seen any other version of the film.
Oh, okay.
So you
really have nothing to compare it to.
I was well aware that this has been adapted multiple times across different mediums. It's been stage plays. It's been acclaimed films like in the past. It seems like a film that comes up every generation, kind of like A Star is Born, and also came from a very beloved book. So I had zero knowledge of it beforehand, and I found it to be really engaging. It's from what I know about it now, just from seeing this film, it's a very big story, and it's got a lot of moving parts, and they all work super well here. That I never found, like, even though there's a lot of different stories going on, so it's clearly adapted from a novel where, the storytelling format is very different. I never felt bored, and I never felt lost, and I always felt like I knew where all the characters were and what was going on. Which is, again, why I feel it's kind of criminal Greta Gerwig didn't get a directing nomination for this, because, that's if all these balls are up in the air, she's the juggler that's keeping them all up there. And, sadly, no nomination for her, but Little Women did get nominated, and I could, see that having a chance of winning as almost like, another way of tipping their hat to it, even if they didn't give her the director nod.
Nice.
Warren, tell us about Marriage Story.
All right, Noah Baumbach. He is somebody who definitely speaks to the human conditions and the human experiences. The squid and the whale. Sorry, it just took me a second just to for the hamster wheel to go around there.
No problem. I'll clip that.
Thank you. I remember watching The Squid and the Whale and just being caught in the drama and the moment. And here is a filmmaker who really works well with actors and really works well with the moments and really works well with the simplest of tensions of what relationships can be about. The Marriage Story, I would say, with the graces of time, he's really fine-tuned that. And The Marriage Story, for anybody who's ever been in a serious relationship and a marriage, and they're watching and they're going, oh, I can relate to this. It speaks such particular truth that it is not simple. There's good guys and bad guys. Some people wear white hats. Some people wear black hats. It is not a simple story, but rather it's situational. In the moment where things are going, what's the logical step next, and how the actors, it's almost like watching a dance in a sense in terms of the emotional context of what's going on in each scene, and they're hitting different parts at different moments. And throughout the course of the film, we see so many different emotional contexts of what's going on and the journey of these characters that are natural, that feels very natural. They're at different places at different times, and we keep seeing them grow. Not that they're ever fully, completely, I would say, I think earlier I used the word caricature. Not that they're ever fully, completely sort of that, what's on the surface. There's always something below. And so the power of Marriage Story is the performance. But there is somebody there who is guiding that in the story with that script to say, okay, this is the grounds we were covering. And the actors just really did a full brush to what that story could be. And it's a great film. It is one of my favorites of the year. I'm so glad to see it's nominated for Best Picture, and I would be very happy to see that one win. I don't know if it will, but I would definitely deserves to be on the list, and I hope a lot of people discover it and love it like I do. So
I hope so too. And honestly, Netflix didn't push it hard enough. I went looking for it because I heard of it. It was never pushed at me in my queue.
It is so funny because I read about this film. I think it was in early fall. Like it was like
Netflix
around September or so.
Netflix does a great job for the, like, and I am a critic of Netflix. And I don't like a lot of what they stand for, but they are spending their money and overspending, but they are spending money and giving so many filmmakers not just they're not just throwing money at prestige things like Scorsese for The Irishman and last year for Roma. They're also throwing it at smaller filmmakers and smaller films, and they do such an awful job of pushing any of it and promoting it.
Well, and that's just it. I was reading about this film, I think it was like in September or so, and I mean, okay, I have to catch this. This sounds like a really good film. Mm-hmm. And then I was hoping we would get it actually in theaters, and it's on Netflix, and it just sort of, it just was not on the consciousness of films.
It baffles me that even things like that Netflix, like other things they pushed for Oscar contenders this year. Yeah. Okay, so they they obviously made a big splash, and they pushed The Irishman at everybody when it came out.
Yeah.
Marriage Story. They submitted it for all kinds of Oscars. It got nominated for multiple categories. I didn't feel they were pushing it because I had to go looking for it, and I was like, oh, really? That's on Netflix? The Two Popes. They got 2 acting nominations out of it, and they were pushing it. Again, I didn't know it was on Netflix. I had to find that out by accident and then go watch it. I was like, oh, I can't see this. It's on Netflix. And right now, and I think it's called American Factory. I could have that title wrong.
Oh, the documentary.
It's a Netflix film.
Oh, fantastic.
It was produced by Netflix, and we can go watch it. They didn't push it.
Wow.
Baffling.
That's interesting.
Baffling that Netflix doesn't. They're creating these prestige films that they're trying to push for awards, and they're not pushing them. They're not putting them front and center in their queues. In my queue.
And we talked about this before. It really needs this, quick 30-second hits of when you log in. Hey, everybody, this is what's playing. Hey, so glad all these films got different nominations. Just so you know, here's a couple of things you can catch. Like I'm surprised that doesn't exist.
Yep. No, I don't know. Netflix, a baffling company. Okay. Up next, 1917. What can we say about 1917? An amazing achievement in directing, in editing, in cinematography, in sound. All like I said for earlier for JoJo and for all films, like what for me is a best picture is all of those elements coming together and so many people having their best day on the same day. Like this is just unbelievable. The scene you mentioned before where the main character is running perpendicular to literally hundreds of soldiers storming out of a trench across a battlefield while the camera pans across him and keeps him perfectly in frame and all these things, and he has to get to a certain spot to hit a mark and hit all these different marks. Unbelievable. All like Roger Deakins cinematography and like I talked about that nighttime sequence and the incredible, the editing and the effects work of being able to make a plane seemingly crash out of the sky onto the ground and then interact with live actors on the ground seamlessly in one uncut scene. Like just what an incredible achievement. And also the story here and just really puts you, and I felt that it wasn't just a gimmick having the one take. That wasn't like, that could be in a different film that could be used just as a gimmick of, hey, look at what we did. And that on itself would be an incredible achievement. But it really, to me, felt like it was used excellently here because it really made you stay in the life of this World War I soldier and really get even a small slice of what it must have been like to have been in that kind of real hell on earth. And when a film can make you feel things and suck you in and not just experience it on a surface level, that story, when it sucks you in and you feel like you're in some way a sliver in that story, like that's a best picture. How's that not on a list of best pictures? And very deservedly is.
Awesome.
You want to take us through Once Upon a Time?
Yeah, let me tell you about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So Quentin Tarantino, even though he's got a very well established filmography, none of his films won Best Picture. And so I think that is going to be on the minds of some people who might be voting. This particular picture, what it's got going for it is, Quentin Tarantino's many things. One thing that he is definitely is he has a style that stands out. Often the style sometimes takes a back seat to the violence, sometimes to the language, certainly to the dialogue. But with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it is the look of the film that really just pops off the screen. In an award system that often will be soft on films about films. Well, here's a film about, an event that took place in your backyard. Of course, it's not done with any kind of historical accuracy. It's done through, the reimagining of Quentin Tarantino. In a way, it's almost like, hey, if I was, had some sort of cosmic influences in the late 60s, this is how this would have played out if I could have had anything to say with it, which is fascinating into itself. But it's the look of the film and the style of the film that really stands out. And even when he's having, some moments that may be a little bit long drawn out, still he is, there's always going to be scenes that are just so incredibly well directed. And when there's moments of that pause, there's always something just wonderful to look at. And I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets it either there, because there's a few things I think they're battling for it. I would put it in the top half of this category for possibilities. I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
Yep.
And to finish out our list, the ninth, and by no means the latecomer to the list, Parasite.
Nice.
I think we both loved the shit out of this film.
Yeah.
Another a film that, like last year with Roma, nominated for Best Foreign Film and for Best Picture, well deservedly. I believe it's the first Korean film ever nominated for Best Foreign Film.
Yes.
And obviously first Korean film ever nominated for Best Picture. As we've talked earlier in earlier categories, just to reiterate a bit, again, it's got, like I say, like I like all those different elements working together, and this film changes tone and genre even mid-course, but not, and it's all, and just keeps changing your perspective. It's like one continuous issue. It's talking about class and this sort of stuff, but it's constantly changing. The film is changing its perspective and its take on it, and it takes the audience on that ride, and it doesn't lose you and doesn't leave you behind, and it keeps changing what you're thinking about, and it's just, and who you're rooting for, or what you think their motivations are, or what you think about them and their motivations, and just top to bottom, amazing. Great acting, great editing, production design, terrifically written, a great director to bring all these elements together. Like, it's got all those things, and we saw it twice, and I was equally or more entertained by it the second time, and it hums along. It's so perfectly edited, and like I think you said earlier, it's like one of those rare perfect films where you wouldn't take a single scene out of it, and everything serves the narrative and drives the film forward, and I could probably watch it 10 more times in the theater.
Yes, I agree.
So,
all right.
That is our 9.
Let's grab the envelope.
Is there any, before we go, so do we want to try to break these down and try to cull this down to what we think are the real 5 and see if we have a consensus
sure,
or not?
Why not? Yeah.
Okay, is there anything off the top that you think would come off the list to get, it's at 9, are there, I don't even know if we're going to be able to agree on 4 that we're going to knock off this list.
Well,
and it's not even that, and it doesn't mean they're bad. Like, it by no means, like, this is a tight year. This is a tight list.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'll go first.
I'd have to go the other way, to be honest. You go ahead. Yeah, okay. You get started.
Okay, I'm going to say, if there's one on here that I really don't think belongs on the list, and I'm saying that asterisk in its current form is The Irishman. Okay. Like I said, when I was breaking it down, I thought that there's a version of this film that should be on here at about 2 hours and 20 minutes, but this super long version, I don't think, it just doesn't have the pace for it and fails in that regard, I guess, from an editing or pacing standpoint and directing standpoint. I would not say The Irishman is a true top contender in my book.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking through the rest of this list, and I can't really...
I'm going to say another one here. It's hard because it was one of my favorite films of the year. But I really think if I'm saying that the top 5, I don't know that Ford v Ferrari makes the top 5.
Now, here's the thing I would say, and that's the one I've been wrestling with.
And again, there's weird, like you said, there's years say Spotlight and so on, we've had the surprises.
Yeah. But with Ford v Ferrari, it is I'd say on this list, like, it's not... I don't say original. I don't mean that, but what I mean is, like, it's there's in all these films, there's things you haven't seen before, and I think that's what makes this list particularly strong. Because we talked about 1917, we talked about Parasite, Marriage Story. There's elements in all these films that you don't really see a whole lot of in other places. Ford v Ferrari. You can't go,
I've seen this movie before, or this reminds me of that other film.
Yeah, Ford v Ferrari is a very good sports-themed film. It is very good, but it is among a history of other very good sports-themed films. So I don't think it really stands out in the same kind of way, because there's nothing very unique in a sense that it is something that is like, if you're going to talk about the best scenes, okay, there's easily 4 or 5 films here that has a scene that's unlike anything else. Exactly. Whereas Ford v Ferrari, there's moments that are nice, but I don't really see it as a standout on like there's anything that would be that sort of inches it forward. So I guess ultimately I'm saying I agree with you.
When
it's a very good film, but there isn't something unique about it.
Like I say, it has a lot of elements going for it.
Yeah.
It's got great acting, decent
Great
writing,
sound. Great
sound,
Yeah.
great sound.
Yeah.
Fantastic editing.
Yeah.
Many things that work about it fantastically. It doesn't challenge me.
Yeah.
There is not a scene in this film that I felt challenged by what it was making me feel.
That's true.
I did not feel there was ever a moment that I thought, how do I feel about this? Or what is it making me feel? It felt like I always knew what was going on, and it was super entertaining and a great sports film, but nothing about it challenged me like other films on this list do this year.
That's true. That's true. Oh. You walked away feeling that you were highly entertained and you spent a good time and you really enjoyed yourself, but it didn't quite hit you like some of these other films did, where you were thinking about it later, going, you're still chewing on it a little bit.
So really, I would say like right now, so we got 7 because I think we've taken 2 off. And I struggle for what else comes off to get to 5.
Yeah.
It's a real pick 'em.
Yep.
I don't think I can do it.
No.
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 Do you wanna maybe talk through? Do you want to try to maybe talk about what some highlights or what's?
Well, I could talk like where I think the top tier films are. Like for me, my favorite film of the year is Parasite. I see that as a top tier film, and it would absolutely blow my mind, and I would be jumping out of my seat to see.
There's a few on this list that I will literally jump off my couch and cheer out loud at 10:45 at night on next Sunday night if it wins, if that's the name of the envelope. There's like
and that's one of them, because it will be the very first international film.
There's two that are super loud cheers for me.
Now, what's kind of
this is one of them.
For me, this is one of them too. It would be the first foreign film to win Best Picture. Now they changed that category this year to call it they call it like for international.
They call it whatever. Yeah,
which is kind of interesting because this could be the year of the international film, and this could be the first time we see international film take Best Picture, and I would be so excited to see that. So to me, that's in the top tier. 1917, we talked a lot about it. I see that in the top tier. Certainly Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's a lot of love for it out there.
Jojo was my favorite of the year, and that's
to be there.
That's the other of those 2 films that I said.
And I love Jojo too.
If Jojo or Parasite wins, I am literally jumping off my couch cheering.
Yeah.
If 1917 wins, I'm like giving a fist pump. I'm like excited. It was one of my favorites of the year.
Joker had a lot of buzz.
Little Women, like there's not one on here that I can really say. Like Joker, I won't be surprised. It was not my favorite film of the year. I did have issues with it. That's a conversation for another time. But if it won, I would not be surprised. Little Women, I wouldn't be surprised. Marriage Story, like I said, it's more of it's not the leader of the pack.
No.
But if it won, I would not have an issue with that. I think it's a really well made film with the best ensemble of the year. Once Upon a Time, again, not my favorite of the year, and Tarantino's not my favorite filmmaker. I think if I have a criticism of him is that I think he doesn't do anything. Like, again, this movie didn't challenge me. I know what it is. It's Quentin Tarantino. He has a very specific style. I'm not criticizing that. There's, room for everything on the buffet. I don't think it's necessary. Like I said, I don't think it really stretched his filmmaking. I don't really see how this film is not like a standout of his career. All right. I won't be surprised if it wins, but I don't really expect it to. I'd say he has a better chance of winning director rather than Best Picture.
Writer, I think, is where.
Writer's what I think he might come. That's what I think is most likely. But that's kind of been the repeat thing for him at the Oscars in the past. Is they give him the writer because they want to acknowledge that that he has a place here, but they're not really willing to give him director and that or picture.
All right.
When you were breaking the film down though earlier, it kind of made me realize, and we are going to have to at some point do a Quentin Tarantino episode.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
He's too big of a film. Regardless that he's not my favorite filmmaker, and I have a lot of issues with him, I think he's too big of a filmmaker of our time to not have an episode to talk about. So we're gonna
let's do that.
I made a note a moment ago that we're gonna have to do that in this year. Okay.
You might just have to go to the envelopes.
We might have to go to the envelopes here.
Yeah.
Okay, Warren, let's go to Warren's fantasy envelope, okay?
Okay.
Or let's just take a peek behind the curtain.
Okay.
Warren, what's in this secret ballot? Like, peel back a layer and let us have this one secret. Warren, what do you want to tell us what your pick would be for Best Picture this year? Your personal vote. I think I know.
You know it.
But
you know what it is. Parasite. It's my favorite film of the year, and there's so much other reasons why I'd love to see it win. But most of all, the reason is because I think its sophistication in storytelling is unlike. There's other films I love here too, but the sophistication of the storytelling is what got me, especially on the second viewing and just watching. Just now, it vibrated because the first time I watched it, I was just enthralled with the moment and the tension and the drama and the suspense of it and where's the story going. The second time I watched it, the themes started popping out and things like, you know what, we have two different class families, yet we're siding with the ones who are a little bit more of the scoundrels because they have the whole world put upon them. Meanwhile, they're interacting with another family who's got, you know, they could afford any luxury they could possibly want, but they're kind of naive to what's going on here, and just the way it was shot and how it contrasts, you know, the space of the one family with this, you know, the space of the other. And it's just like there's so much to chew on this film that it just sort of speaks. And so I find it a very deep film that I'm sure if I watch a third and fourth time, there will be even more reveals in there too. So I love Parasite. It is my favorite film. I hope it wins. I'm rooting for it all the way. You. All right.
All right. If I'm going to give away my secret vote here, and no surprise to anybody that's listened to this podcast or to the Screen Pop podcast, I think did we talk about this on Screen Pop?
Yes, we did.
On Must See Movies?
Yes, we did.
We did, yeah. Jojo Rabbit.
There we go.
By a hair over Parasite. Parasite's probably my second favorite film of the year.
By a hair.
By a hair. It was not like just by that close. Parasite. They're almost 1 and 1A for what was my favorite film this year. But Jojo, I just love Jojo Rabbit so much. It's one of these films I'm never gonna stop pushing at people, and if I hear somebody who hasn't seen it, I'm gonna hound them mercilessly until they see it. And it's just, like I said, when I was breaking it down, all those elements coming together and everybody having their best day on the same day. I love JoJo, and if JoJo wins, I'm going to jump up in the air and yell so loud my neighbors are going to kick the floor. They're going to hate me. Yes. Now.
Yeah.
Warren, yes. I'm handing you the envelope.
There we go.
In Warren's eyes right now, just try to see through the mists of time.
All right. 8
days into the future. We're next Sunday night. It's 10:45 at night.
Yeah.
Winnipeg time, Central Time. The audience is getting restless because they just want to get the hell out of there and go drinking. I want to get to bed because my alarm's going off in 5 hours. You still have another 2 hours to stay up because you like going to work on 4 hours sleep and staying up late at night.
Yeah.
At some point in the past 20 minutes earlier, you've suddenly realized that you have not made a must-see movie post for the day.
Oh, right.
So you're now frantically typing it as you're watching with one eye on the TV, and you're typing, and I'm every once in a while, I'm checking my social medias to see if you've made the post yet. I'm thinking about texting you going, did you forget to do a post today?
Which I appreciate, by the way.
Yes. I don't want to see the streak end of you never missing the date. We've peered through, we're pushing, and in the visual medium that is podcasting, I am waving my arms in the air as if parting the mists of time, as if both the mists of time were a physical thing I could push out of the way, and that's a thing that the listening audience at home can see me doing.
I'm videotaping it.
Warren can vouch that I'm like an idiot doing this.
It looks like you're swimming, actually.
I am swimming through time. Warren, what is what is the name inside that envelope?
Now, if you were to ask me this question, you know, just
and that's
a
only today.
short time ago,
it
would have been a very different answer.
Okay.
And the answer as of today is Parasite. And the reason being is this. When the SAG Awards were given out and they won Best Ensemble, all of a sudden I went, whoa, there is a real legitimacy to them getting Best Picture. Because often, usually what wins Best Ensemble, you know, has a tendency to typically win Best Picture. It's usually one of the tells that people look at. I thought for sure 1917, like up until that point, was going to be, you know, probably is going to be a walk away, the big winner of the night. However, and this could just be my own bias, my own affection for the film that is clouding my judgment through your very enthusiastic passages of time of pushing those to a side.
I'm pushing them aside, and there's multiple futures we can see. The future is always in motion.
I just think there's such momentum of this film from when it was released, early November till now.
Well, we saw it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
and it was a almost packed cinema.
Yeah, it's on people's consciousness, and I think people are.
And I believe that was a cold night in Winnipeg too, wasn't it? It was a cold night, and we were surprised. We were like, nobody's going to the movies tonight. We'll have no problem getting a seat.
We'll have to pick the theater. Yeah.
We're gonna each have our own row here. I'm gonna sit behind you, and kick your chair. Nope, we were sitting in the front third of the theater where we usually don't like to be.
Like, how did this happen?
In my very entitled lifestyle of going to the cinema and usually being able to pick my seat in advance, I was very chuffed that we were that close. But
yeah. So, Parasite. I think Parasite is going to win.
I'm opening the envelope, and the name I'm seeing right now, and this can change as the future's always in motion, but the name I'm seeing right now is 1917.
Yeah.
You almost said the smart money bet right now. It's probably the odds-on favorite in Vegas.
I think it is the odds-on favorite. Yeah. I would say that would be for sure.
I also, when I saw that result from SAG, I was like, whew. I'm like, Parasite has a real chance.
I think it really does.
To be what they would call an upset winner all night. Yeah. I by no means think of it as an upset. It's a fantastic, fantastic film.
Yeah.
But it could really, can you imagine if next Sunday night we're texting each other at 11 o'clock at night that...
I'll lose my mind.
Holy shit, Parasite just hit Best Picture and Best Director, which I can see happening. I do not think it is that long of a long shot for Parasite to get Best Picture and for Bong Joon-ho. I think we've said that wrong several times during this podcast.
I apologize.
Yeah, and so do I. But I think that I think it could hit both of those.
I agree, and I'm hoping it does. It deserves it. International cinema.
Actually, it could win 3 because, I also another category we didn't do today was Best International Film, just because
it's got that
Parasite was the only one we'd seen, and I also knew that even if we'd seen all the other ones, I'm pretty sure you and I would have both just said that's a no pick. That's straight up that they may as well just give it to it now.
Yeah.
So it could win Best International Film, Best Picture, and Best Director, and I would not be in the least. That would not shock me. I'd be like, okay, nope.
Yeah. And editing too, I can see it happening.
Yeah.
It's a well edited.
It could have a huge night and just be amazing.
Yeah, no, I hope it does, and maybe I'm just being a little over enthusiastic with it. I do agree with you that
I'm
rooting
strongly.
I do think 1917 is the front runner, but I just have this feeling that I think there's an affection for Parasite out there that people might.
I think, and honestly, like I just said, even though I just said it would be amazing if it won all those awards, I really do think this year, I think between Best Picture and Best Director, even though it's weird and some people, and we could have that argument all day about how does a movie win Best Picture but not the director win Best Director, and it's happened in the past, and quite often it syncs up, quite often it doesn't. I think this is again another year where they're going to split it because there's so many great films that even though it's stupid that you go best is best, and if they really think that's the best they should, quite often it's kind of political or voters seem to think like, oh no, they're split on it. So I kind of feel like the Best Picture and Best Director will be different this year because I think they're going to be like, you know what, let's give Parasite Best Picture, but let's give Best Director to Sam Mendes or vice versa. I think that's the most likely betting combination.
Interesting.
But anything could happen this year, I think.
I think so too.
Anything could happen.
It's a pretty solid lineup.
I'm going to be really disappointed, and like I said, I've beat up a lot on The Irishman on this podcast, on this episode today, and I do think that Martin Scorsese deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award and absolutely deserves to be recognized as one of the greatest filmmakers of this time.
Sure.
But if...
he has won an Oscar for...
He won Oscars.
Against New York.
If he wins this year for The Irishman as a makeup call over one of these other great films or deserving directors, I'm gonna kick a chair. I'm gonna flip the table in my apartment. That's really gonna chuff me. But
yeah.
Anyways,
well, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun watching.
It's gonna be an amazing. I want to skip to that last 40 minutes because it's gonna be like, holy, I don't know what it's going to be. It has the potential to be such an exciting night, and I'm cheering for movies, but hey, whatever, I'm a film nerd and I don't care. I'm excited.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do. Before we get out of here,
yes,
I do want to pump
woot woot
your new podcast that just launched. The Screen Pop presents Must See Movies. Do you want to just give that a quick boost here?
And if you, we want to hear what you guys, for all 3 listeners, we want to hear what your votes are. And so if you go down to screenpop.ca, we're having a contest for an Oscar pool. So please go there and enter. For the podcast, first Monday of every month, we're going to launch Must See Movie Podcast, which we'll be talking about particular anniversaries or film releases of the upcoming month. And if you're film geeks like us who get kind of excited thinking about, oh, you know what? This is going to be the 30th anniversary of La Femme Nikita, it's coming up this month. And why don't we watch on that particular day? Because, there's some sort of cosmic kind of fun to enjoy films in that kind of way. Then this is the podcast for you. So, check that out. It's Neil and I chatting about films about the upcoming month, and we'll have contests and we'll have guests, and we'll always have something to say about films.
And it's an outgrowth of your website.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us that?
Screenpop.ca, which is a website site that talks about films and pop culture, and one of the things that's kind of grown from that is Must See Movies. So on every day I should say, I reference a film of the significant to that day. So for example, now we're recording this, of course, I was going to say something very specific about yesterday, but of course people are going to be listening to a whole lot of yesterdays in the sense of cosmic time. But like, for example, on Martin Luther King Day, here's a particular film that is good to watch is Selma. And we go through the rationale for why and talk about the significance of that film, and we do that each and every day. And it's been a great outpouring of people referencing how much they enjoy it, as well as what they think should be must-see movies. And so it has kind of a nice community that's growing from that. So let's hear what your films are, because I'm always on the hunt for those gems of films that somehow have missed the filmography of my viewing.
And
background. So.
And where can we find it on the social medias?
On social medias, you can find it at Warren24FPS on Twitter, as well as on Instagram, Joaquin_tall, and then Warren Nightingale on Facebook is where I put all those must-see movies. And maybe if you don't mind putting that in the notes,
absolutely,
because I
will put some show notes out about that.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
and in the meantime,
thanks for the plug.
If you enjoyed, anytime. If you enjoyed, I'm totally planning on riding the coattails, because I'm pretty sure your audience is going to end up being bigger because your website's bigger. So I'm going to absolutely coast those coattails, and I'm going to double the screen chat the screen chat audience to 6. So in the meantime, if you listen to this, if you liked it, please tell your friends, talk about it, and you can find. I never do this. I always close the show out without thinking about this. But you can find Screen Chat. You can find it on Instagram. Look for Screen Chat Pod. You can also find it on Twitter at Screen Chat Pod. And check it out. And I don't do enough on the social medias, but I'm going to try to be doing more on that. And like I said, please, if you like this, share it with your friends. And also, if you got comments, reply at those places or email me at screenchatpod@gmail.com. And if you like the show, if you hate the show, if you think we're a pair of clowns and we don't know a thing about cinema, chime in. Let me know.
Join the party.
Exactly. I was bullied growing up, so negative feedback is natural to me and almost feels like a warm blanket. So please, anything you have to say about the show, I'd love to hear it, just to know there's people out there that are actually hearing it. So, and until next time, please enjoy the Oscars. Also, if you want to interact with us and tell us what you think about the Oscars, our picks, any picks, what are your picks, or anything else film related. And until then, go to a movie and kick the seat in front of you and annoy that person like I've just annoyed you.